coming at you. My first podcast here. Oh, well, I guess it's kind of a podcast. I don't know what you call it, but we're going live in quite a few spots from Kickstarter. Not from Kickstarter. What am I saying? From YouTube to Facebook to Twitter to Twitch. We should be broadcasting all at once here. As I said, my name's Doran and this is my Creating Comics in CorelDRAW cast here, or stream, I guess they would call it. And this is not a drawing stream. That's an important thing to note off the bat here. This is more of a comic book lettering, editing, reframing, logos, just graphic design, and kind of create the comic book beyond the art itself. So that's the master plan here, is to try and teach that and show people things and let them ask and learn, right? So that's the idea. If you have questions, the idea is to just jump in and ask those questions if you have them, and I'll try and answer them for you. Because I remember what it was like back in the day to not have somebody to actually help explain things. Now, the internet's amazing, but sometimes it's better to ask and hear a voice, and just to go past that a little bit and just explain, who am I, right? So who is Doran Corkum? So at this point, we will just go into a couple things about myself. First off, here I am. It's Doran. So we're on episode 1 here. I should move this way with this camera. And again, it's not a drawing stream. I just want to put the graphic up there, have you first start, and we'll see how these go. I want to branch them out into teaching CorelDRAW, but also other softwares and just the basics of graphic design, because sometimes there's just basic rules. Once you know them, you'll get them, and it'll make your art design better. So first off, just to mention that I've been doing this for about 20 years plus, believe it or not, with these gray hairs on my head. I've been a CorelDRAW user way back to version 4. I believe they're on version 2023/2024, I'm assuming at this point. But I've been using it for a long time, and for 14 plus years of that, I actually worked at Corel as a quality assurance tester, and I won multiple innovation awards there. So actually, some of the features you see inside of CorelDRAW were actually designed by me, or were my ideas, some of them in there anyways. Always an exciting thing to be able to say. And as well, a couple other things about myself that's good to know. I just want to give you some knowledge of my skill level here, so that you understand I'm not talking about my pie hole here. I can give you good advice. I went to college. I became a graphic technician printer, which means a graphic designer who knows how to run printing presses. And we're not talking, a lot of people start thinking of photocopiers in their office. This is not that. This is in the movies when they're printing a newspaper and there's this giant press, or there's these big presses they're up. It's running those presses and understanding how to use them to get a printed material out of them. So printing comic books was perfectly in line with my plans. I'm also a web designer and a digital media graphics. And I noticed I spelled media wrong there, by the way. But anyways, and I'm also an artist as well. So just to show you a couple things that I've worked on in the last few years. So on the left is my art coming up for one of the covers for the Forsaken Future issue number 3, which will be going to Kickstarter probably next year with issue number 2. The middle part is a real great example of graphic design work and using it in a comic format. So inside of those comic books, I wanted to create this image of WaterCorp and this kind of sarcastic ad like on RoboCop from the RoboCop movies. But anyways, this is an example of something where you can take a piece of art and turn it into a graphic design. And so, I added the ash water bottle in there. I put all the logo, the text, the graphics in that. And then on the far right side here is the most recent cover I've actually done for my current Kickstarter, Raquel 2, which is still live for another couple of weeks. So this is a great combination of looking at something, for instance, the old Creepshow type covers, and mimicking it in a graphic design. So I actually combined the art of 2 artists that I worked with, Adja Cerezo and Joaquin Guerrera. So this is actually 2 artists, and I put it together in this format to re-represent a cover that mimics the Creepshow, which is a classic horror. So I actually removed color from the art to make it look flatter, not as depth. But anyways, there's a lot of what's called typography done in here, the way the text is put, and etc. But anyways, that's enough about me. This isn't about me as much as to have this kind of open window for everybody to discuss if they have questions out there as I work. So it's our first stream. I don't picture us. Maybe we'll have a good audience. We'll see and we'll find out. But we'll get at it. I figured I could be doing this while I'm doing work. So I'm going to start working on actually Raquel 2. And as I work, if anyone has questions about graphic design, Corel, creating comics, I'd be more than happy to answer them for people. as we go and going forward. So it'll be every Thursday night at 8. I'll be doing this. I'll open myself up for an hour to start discussions. I got the idea from watching David Finch's streams, and I've been watching a lot of other artists draw, but no one ever talks about graphic design. Nobody ever talks. Nobody seems to talk about laying out text. There's a science to laying out text. There's a bunch of rules, it's particularly in comics, to what text is and how to lay it out. And sometimes your text can get in the way of the art, and it can kind of make your story ruin your story sometimes. And I'm going to show a bunch of tricks to get around that when the artist doesn't give you exactly what you need to place your text in that too. And a lot of this stuff I just do naturally because I've been doing this so long. So I'll try to slow down for everybody. And if I'm ever going too fast, of course, just give me a kick of some sort as I try to troll the chat windows out there as I go. So let's get at it. Again, if anyone's out there, just give me a kick. So this is CorelDRAW. I guess I should do an introduction to CorelDRAW just so everybody's aware. CorelDRAW is the first graphic design software on a PC computer. Adobe first started on Apple computers, and then they came over to the PC, but Corel was there, and it was back in 89 that they were actually started creating softwares like this, around 89, that they put out the first version of CorelDRAW. I've been using it since CorelDRAW 4. And what makes CorelDRAW amazing is its only competitor at that time was actually two softwares. People would know it as Adobe Illustrator, but Adobe Illustrator was only for graphic design, like creating one page of something. And there was another product called Quark Express. So that's just a little history for you. What made CorelDRAW amazing was all of it. You could create a whole book in here. See down here on the bottom left-hand corner, you can actually add in more pages. And this is now a new feature that they put in a couple versions ago, where you can actually just keep adding new pages into the product. But anyways, I'll show you in a more real example here, which is going to be Raquel 2 that I'm currently working on. I actually need Raquel 2.1 here. So I'm just going to navigate my way to Raquel and to the latest work I've been working on. So this is what makes CorelDRAW so cool. Now, CorelDRAW is a product that is expensive to own the full version of. There is essential versions of it, and they do have a web version, like an online version of the app they've been creating as well. But the power that it has is just amazing. And it's what's always made it good is that its ability to actually be easy to use almost. So, all right. So anyways, I just realized I'm not sharing the screen. So let's get to that. Windows. Got a boom. All right. Let's move this over here. And now you can actually see CorelDRAW. And this is what I'm talking about with the pages. So see on the right-hand column here, I'm scrolling through all the pages of my current comic book, Raquel. So this is, you can re-leverage your files. For instance, when I created when I created Raquel 1, this is actually that file just renamed as Raquel 2. And then I put the graphics in it from the artist and started my design work. And as well, just to show you another cool feature of it, you can actually, a new feature they put in a couple of versions ago as well is something called multi-page view. And let me just close the stalker out of our way. It's a very customizable software, and that's what a lot of people love about it. There's multiple ways to do things. But if you see me scroll out here and move this around, you can see I can now see a preview of my whole comic as I've laid it out right now. And this is what I'll do. I'll go through every page now that it's in here, and I'll add the actual lettering to it, do the graphic design to the pages itself. I'll reframe things sometimes based on if I like what the artist did or not. A real great example is I was working on this page here. So if I switch this out of multi-page view and back to single page view, on this page here was the last one I was working on, where I actually used CorelDRAW to create this text. And I put it in here over top of some fire that I took that was literally the artist's other frame. So some of the things that make CorelDRAW really powerful is one Control Z to undo things so that you can get back to where you were. But as you work, it actually creates by default a backup of your file every 20 minutes. So you'll always have something if something goes horribly wrong, if you forget to save, you'll always have 20 minutes, about 20 minutes back, and they're called backup files. I'll just show you the folder. So you'll see in this folder here, I don't know if I can make it bigger or not. Maybe I can. Yeah. You'll see I have all these files named backup. What that is CorelDRAW is constantly making that the backup as I work of this other file that I've opened. So that's a really nice little built-in feature that it has. It's got tons of features that you're not even going to think about, and then you go, oh, it's here. You just have to find it and figure out how to work with it. And that's where I thought maybe there's some videos out there that really, there isn't videos, I should say, out there of such things. And I'm hopefully going to start bringing those to the world as I go here and launch maybe a quick tips type thing at some point. So let's just start off with somewheres. It's a good page that I can start working on here. There's some good text. All right. So this is one of the pages done by Aja Cerezo. First thing I would do is I can see right away there's the frames are not so good here. You can see these white lines around the frame. So you'll see that when you could take this to print, and you do not want that. And there's easy ways to fix this. I could edit the bitmap, but there's actually some really cool tricks you can do inside of CorelDRAW to reframe a page. So I'm going to show you a couple little tricks here, probably right off the bat, just to give you what it looks like. So here's the actual piece of art. You've just got this from your artist. They've colored it. They've got it colored, or they went out to the colors and back to you. Again, it has this problem. You can actually relay out your framing if you're not happy with it for whatever reason, or you just can't. A lot of the times I can't fit the text in. Like a lot of artists don't realize you're supposed to leave a third of a frame for your text, for your conversations. And if an artist doesn't do that, it makes it hard, right? How are you going to fit in the text? You've got to have some tricks up your sleeve, and that's what I do sometimes. So in this case here, we've got him looking in on the top right here. So what I'm going to do is a simple copy of this page, and then do a copy and paste it multiple times. And you'll see why here in a second. We're just going to play with this page tonight and see what we can do with it to make it look better. And sometimes it doesn't make it look better. This is part of the process of playing and learning when you do graphic design. So there's some easy things I can see to do right away. So what we've got here now is you see because I copied and pasted multiple times, I did that for a reason, okay? In CorelDRAW, there's shapes here on the right-hand side. I think I'll try to make them bigger for you guys. I think there's a toolbar option. I made them big already, but I think I can make them even larger. Okay, so that's a bit larger. Cool. So there's a tool over here that's just a rectangle, right? Your typical rectangle tool. You'll probably see in a lot of softwares. Tons of features here. So see here, just a rectangle, right? What's neat now is Corel has something called a power clip, which allows you to control the shape of something. This could be a circle, a starburst, whatever. You can take a bitmap, which is the art that you got from the artist, and you can actually drag it inside, and with your right click and release it and say power clip inside. And now it is inside that square. So this is great for reframing things. And this will be a good example here. So we have these kind of bugs in this canvas here, and it's not exactly a clean border on it. Well, what we can do is we can actually expand this up. I'm going to hit finish here out of the power clip. And you can see here, this is now the square, right? And it doesn't look, this looks terrible right now. This is, what value does this have to be, right? So what you do is there's an unlock button up here. That allows you to change the shape of this rectangle, but not move the bitmap. And what I'm going to do is reframe this into its own frame because I made copies of it. You'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. And now what you always want to do after you do something, so now you can see I've turned it into like it's its own, like I got it from the artist as just one piece of art. I now lock it back into place with this lock icon up here. And I can move it around my screen, and I can now change its shape. I can put a border around it. For instance, I'm right clicking on the white color here on the right, and I'm putting the outline up to, let's just for you to see how that I just did a nice little white outline around the actual frame. And now because it's locked, I can actually resize this frame. But you always want to be worried about the DPI as you do such things. But now I just made that into its own individual frame, and I still got the rest of everything, right? So I can literally place this frame over top of this frame if I like, for instance. Whoops, that was a misclick, as I call it. So you can kind of see where this is going. You can start to make this look a little bit better, in the sense if you want to use a white frame, you can play as well, right? Maybe you like gray frames. Maybe you want a red frame around that particular frame for whatever reason, for emphasis, whatever. In this case, I'll put it back to white, and we'll continue to work on this page. So see this, there's more problems here with this frame here. So so what do we want to do? That's why I made all these copies over here. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to now, I should stop myself because I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I want to take this out of here, and I want to take this off the page. I've created this page, and these are called guidelines on it. These blue lines that you're seeing all over the place. And you can lock to these so graphics stick to them, for instance. So see here, I'm going to put the lock on. It's called snapping. I'm going to click snap to guidelines. And now when it gets near a guideline, it automatically snaps into place. So this is great for aligning stuff. And you can pull these guidelines out from the very top rulers. So I'm just pulling from the top ruler up here, and I'm pulling out all these lines. That's how you create a guideline. It's pretty simple to do. And there's a ruler there you can zoom right into to get measurements out of as well, right? So that's an actual ruler with your inches or whatever your default document is set to. All right. So we now know I've created, because this was based on my other comic book, this is the right size page you want to publish to, which is 7. You'll see it up here in the top right. I wish I had some kind of magnifying glass tool I could put over top of this for you. But this is created to 7 by 10.5 inches, which is the typical size a printer is going to want the comic book sent to them in. And then these guidelines are actually resembling the trims, what's called the trim size of the page. So the outer border is here on the outside. So right now I have the snapping on. So when I release it here, it's going to just snap right to that spot. And we're going to take another square and keep the same sort of framing and see what it looks like for what Aja has done here. Now, I provided a lot of the thumbnails for him, so he might come back and say, hey, Doran, you thumbnailed it this way. But this is just about flexibility and being able to do things. So what's happening right here is you're seeing a distortion right here. So it's like, what's going on? The only problem here is that in a product like this, it works like a stack of cards. Like if you have a bunch of playing cards and you put them on top of each other. So if you put your hands even on top of each other, you can see, if you open your fingers, you can see your hand underneath. And if you open them even further, you can see underneath that even further. It's the same thing with what's called layers in these products. And that just means something is on top of something on top of something. In this case, this frame that we just made is on top of the frame that we like better with the white border on it. So I'm just going to use a shortcut that I know off by heart because I've used it a zillion times, and I'm going to bring it to the front. So it's the hand in front on the top now. It's the top playing card, and make the other image of who's called Nick here. I'm putting him into the background underneath that top playing card. So I'm just going to do that shortcut, and you'll see the difference. See what happened there? Now we got the proper layering starting to happen here. I'm going to try and so I know that this border is at 10 pixels. That's probably a little bit thick for the border. I'm going to drop it down. I don't know if I'll keep the white borders or not. This is just, it's an experimental thing. And I'm now going to add the 8 pixels and turn it white to the frame we just made so it matches kind of what's going on. So you can start to see here what we can do. And if we wanted to make this frame bigger, so this kept it the same size, but because it's locked in here, and see how we have a black section here? So we have to move the actual graphic. I'm just going to do that right now. So what you can do, since it's locked, is we can actually make this frame bigger. If we wanted to totally change the framing look here and make them, let's say, match for whatever reason, because it just snapped to the guide, it just popped. It's all perfectly aligned if you zoom in here. You know, you didn't have to do any extra work to align it. But now you'll see that this is starting to have quite a bit of a different look than what it had before, right? And we've gotten rid of these bad edges on the actual framing for the comic. So these are just tips and tricks and different ways you can do things. You don't have to have, like, we can now take these frames and turn them off, right? We don't need to have the frames. That's just a choice. We can just leave everything black, right? So just a thought there. So that's looking all right. And now that I have them in this mode, we can just play around a little bit more. For instance, right now, we've got this kind of extra section that we're seeing. I'm going to unlock this power clip now and just get rid of some of this extra stuff that makes this frame look a little bit rough. And again, I'm now going to lock it back down. So I'll show you what happens if you don't lock it down. If you don't lock it down, when the frame of the square moves, the image underneath does not move with it. So it's a little bit messy here if you do it that way. So watch here. See how it's gone now? You're going to be saying to yourself, what's going on here? This is not what I was looking at. This is the whole page underneath. So that's what you don't want to do. I'm going to use Control-Z to get me back to where I was. Put this frame back up here now. Oh, I forgot to lock it, so it disappeared. Control-Z back, lock it. Now when I move it, it's stuck inside that object exactly the way I wanted it. So this next one gets a little more interesting because it's kind of an angled part here. But I just want to show you a trick here first, because this image on the left is a real good one for it. Right now, Aja hasn't left me a lot of room for the text, but we have a repetitive kind of cloud background at the top of this image. So watch this. What we're going to do is we're going to actually edit this bitmap. So edit this frame. So watch here. We're actually inside of this square. It's crazy to think. And once you get this, it'll make sense. And so we're inside there, right? And I'm going to use this crop tool on the left to get rid of all the noise we got. So we're just looking at the actual image of Nick. I want to make sure I do this exactly right. We don't want any of the bad framing. We don't want, we want as much of the sky as possible because we're going to reuse it or attempt to reuse it. We'll see what happens here. I might keep his other hand in here because I think I might want to expand this later to make it look like this. We'll try that in a second. So I'm now going to hit the crop button, and you'll see the rest of the page of art just disappeared, and I now just have the art of the one frame. The trick I wanted to do here was I wanted to make the extra space above his head for some lettering to fit. And to do that, because I have this look at the top, I'm actually going to copy it. I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to what's called flip it. So see how it's upside down? I'm using the Control key, and I'm going to bring it up here. And now when we go, I'm now going to group it together. And when I hit finish, we can now change. So I'm going to unlock the square. Watch what happens when I go above his head now. We now have extra space for the lettering to fit. This is a good little trick. It's very helpful. I use it all the time. I'm going to lock it back down, and now I can move it down here or put it within my borders like I want and kind of mimic a little bit of what was happening before. I'm going to now unlock it again, and I'm going to extend over this way so I can see his hand a little bit because his hand was showing. I guess there's really not that much of it. Oh, there it is. Because it's duplicated, it's going to look weird right now. So that's a bit of a problem. We don't want you to visually pick up on the duplications, and there's another trick for that. We won't worry about it right now. Well, you know what? Why not? Let's show you another funky little trick at the same time. I'm going to pop open, go inside of this square I created where I put these two graphics, And I'm going to actually select them. And what we can do is turn them into one, let's call one graphic, one bitmap, one piece of art that you would have got almost from a customer or from your artist. And I'm going to convert them to a bitmap. So now they're not two separate pieces. They're now one piece. CorelDRAW comes with a product called PhotoPaint, which I worked on for many years. And I know so much about PhotoPaint, it's crazy. So I'm going to hit right click. I'm going to hit edit this bitmap. And this is the full-blown bitmap editor that comes with the CorelDRAW suite. So now we're in another software within the CorelDRAW suite. And we can actually remove some of this. You know how we can see a pattern here? The eye will pick up a pattern. So we're going to soften that pattern by using something called the clone tool here on the left. I'll try and increase their size like I did with the other ones. Maybe I don't. Oh, it doesn't look like I have the option. Like I, oh yeah, here it is. All right. So see this clone one over here. Oh, you can't see it. Why can't you see it? This is interesting. The share screen will not show the other application. Huh. I have no idea why it won't do that. Okay, so I guess we won't be able to do it. I'll show you the results of this. I'm now using the clone tool inside of PhotoPaint very quickly, and I can grab sections and kind of duplicate a pattern to get rid of a pattern. You'll see in a second here. I'll just do it real fast just so we can do it for this. What I'm doing is, again, breaking up the pattern for the eye. I'm going to hit save, come back into CorelDRAW. We'll figure that out for the next show. And now when I hit finish back out, you'll see less of a pattern here. Now I just did it quick so that we could, you'll see it's some of the cloud is now over his hand. This tool allows you to take the section from, let's say here. Let's do it this way. The section here and reuse it over here. So you can take little pieces of different parts of the background and manipulate them. That's what the tool did for me. And it removed that kind of look. But anyways, so let's get back to making this look a little better. I'm going to get rid of the idea of his hand being there. To kind of give us a little bit of that feel like he's opening the bag. A lot of fidgeting around here. All right. So we still got a little bit of playing to do to make this fit better. But we're almost there. Tire Mixer 7. Hey, Tire Mixer, what's going on? You're not bothering me, man. The whole idea of this stream is to have open conversation. What's up, my friend? All right. I want to offer a promotion to you. Oh, no, not promotion for viewers. No, what viewers, chatbots. Yeah, no, not interested, buddy. You can keep that. I get a lot of those. I probably get like 10 of those a day. To turn it on and off, go to your stream rise. Yeah, no, not my thing. I was hoping it was more of a CorelDRAW question. Interesting name though. Tired Mixer 7. Okay, so we still have some noise in this graphic. I'm about to fix that, and I'll show you by putting the white borders back on. Oh, the white border is actually high. Oh, see right here, we can see this black line here. We want to get rid of that. We don't want to make it worse like that. So this is a very touchy one. What I'm doing is I'm resizing the graphic within the little square that we created earlier. I'm using my arrow keys to move around and to make it fit. Okay. Oh, CorelDRAW is doing its thinking thing for a second here, so that usually means it's trying to do a big save. We'll just give it a second to do its save. And what we'll do next is we'll actually put a bubble in, just to give you an example of how CorelDRAW can be used in the sense of comic creation with lettering and all that stuff. And I'll show you one of the interesting things to make your bubbling easier that it does. And it's really up to you whether you would want to use it or not. I do custom bubbles myself when I do my lettering. And I use, a very specific font I'll show you here in a second. It is thinking hard. My computer seems to be not being my friend right now. Well, that's a bad time for it to freeze up. I'll just give it a second. There we go. Okay. Okay. I'm just going to move this out of the way. So we start to see the formation of a comic book page here and reframing it from what it looked like before. Now we're going to use something called, it's a group of tools, common shapes. There's a really cool common shape. There are different types of bubbles. And what's neat about the bubbles in CorelDRAW is you can grab them and use them. I'm now filling it with white, and I'm going to put a border on it of a couple pixels so it sticks out. But what is neat is that you can drag them, change their shape very easily. And they have this little, see this little red diamond spot on the front? If you pick this second tool, it's called a vector node. And this tool here is meant for picking vector nodes. But when you pick it, you can now move the actual, they call it a tail, the part that goes to the head for the voice. We'll just call it, I'm sure it has an official name. And just to show you here. So Nick here now has some room for some text to fit in. And we can keep adjusting this tail around his head. So this is a real easy way to do bubbles. For the font, I've used for years the same font over and over again. I bought it as a comic font a lot of years ago. It's called Wild and Crazy. And it's kind of a fun little thing to talk about as well, too. So it's a real comic font. So I'll just do what... I'm just going to take it about 7 points, which is about normally what you would use for a font size. I'm aligning it now just for an FYI. And I'm now going to shrink this bubble right down. And pull that node again with the tool. So it's pointing, I always like to have it pointing at the mouth. A lot of people do comic bubbles and they're not pointing in the mouth. I just think that's weird. So you want it to have with a degree that it's pointing into the mouth area to me. If it's not, then to me it's wrong, honestly. And you want to leave white space around your text. It's just visually good for the eye. It just makes it easier to read and for someone to find. So you want to leave a degree of white space. So along the lines with this font, it came with 2 different fonts. It came with this one, which is your comic font. So let's do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, whatever. I'm now going to flip that font. You can get all these fonts and a great site. Good tip for everybody, 1001fonts.com. Lots of free fonts there, but watch your legal rights to use them. But if you want a font to play with and a really cool font, a lot of my fonts in here come from the CorelDRAW suite, which comes with a ton of fonts. Or for instance, this chainsaw one here, it's called Chainsaw. That's actually a 1001 font one. So if we go down to Wild and Crazy, which is the comic font I use, I'm not sure if you can still buy it or not. You'd have to look into that. That's what it looks like now, right? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It comes with this cool font that does comic book sounds. So see here, you have to kind of work with them a little bit because I don't think you can put them white. I'm going to try it. I haven't used it for a while. Okay, so you can. So if you make them put the outline on it, they're actually pretty good. So you can, as with the alphabet, this can save you a little bit of time. It alphabetically has a number, so H I J K L M N O P Q R S T U V W X. Good old Y and Z. I am not a good typer. All right, you'll see here with this one font, if you get it, it comes with all these pretty cool little save yourself some time, car sounds, things of that nature that you might find interesting. It even has munch in there. I mean, pulp. I've actually used that one. I don't remember where. I used Rumble all the time for car sounds, and Vroom I've used. And oh, you know what? Look what we just did. We just did what the, right? So actually, if I'm taking this one out, I'm gonna paste it. See what it looks like up here. And then I'm going to turn it back to black. So I don't know if I'm a real big fan of this particular one, but there's a lot of good ones in here. Badoom, I mean, who can't love Badoom? Badoom is fantastic. Crash sounds, blam, blam, blam for shooting, arg. And good old no. Anyway, you could really have some fun with these, and they will save you time for doing some stuff. I'll just show you a little trick here too. Is there's another tool called a fill tool, Smart Fill. So I'm setting this to the white color. Oops, not like that. So when it goes in here, and that's black. But let's just do it this way, just for the sake to see what. Oh, you know what? I don't think I like it that way. We could try it this way. This is just an example of the power of CorelDRAW and some of its tools. Like, see how quick we just did that? We just filled that with another color, even though it's kind of this weird shape. So I'm going to change it to white up here in the little color picker. We'll do the same. We're going to go back and fill again. Now it's looking a little bit more like a comic bubble, right? And now we can take the red color, right, using the same, what's called Smart Fill, switch its color again to red or some other color that we want to use. Let's go this way to reddish. And when I come out here and I click, I'm now actually filling the colors to a different color. And we can have fun with this. We could put transparencies on it. We can put shades of colors on it. Drop shadow. A drop shadow is a real good thing to see. So let me just show you here. I'm just going to group. It's called grouping this. You have this drop shadow tool on the left, and I use drop shadows all the time. I have my own custom presets in here. And for some reason, they won't show on the stream, but I'll show you. See here, this is what's called a drop shadow. It's actually creating a shadow underneath here that you can set the different size for. I can change the feathering of that shadow, and that'll add depth to your bubbles if you like that sort of thing, and you have total control here of what it looks like, and you can manually move it. The other cool thing that they put in that I've used a lot since I've seen it is block shadows. So I'll show you what a block shadow is here quick too, because they're pretty neat. Once you see this, you'll go, oh, a block shadow. See how I added depth to that? I'll show you it a little bit bigger. It puts this kind of starbursty thing we've probably seen our entire lives in advertisements onto the shape. I'll change the color of it here for you. Oops, wrong choice. So it just gives it a little bit of a depth to it. It's really how you do your bubbling and your special effects and stuff. Like this is just me messing around just to show you some stuff. I wouldn't necessarily use this as is right now. I would do my own custom text and do a couple more changes to it myself. But if you want a quick bubble thing, you're in a rush, or just to make your life easier, and it could, this could make you happy. This could be your thing. It's always fun to play and tweak with this stuff, right? That's what being a designer or an artist or a graphic designer is all about, is playing, tweaking, and having fun doing it, So I'm going to put back my and just so you understand how CorelDRAW works, this is the actual page here you'll see. This is what's called the pasteboard all around it. You can keep whatever you want in the pasteboard area around it. It's kind of like storing it there for if you want to use it in the future. And that's what I've done here. Is I could say, well, you know what? I'm not going to use these other fonts down here right now. I'm going to change them to the black outline, and I can now pull them off to the side. But I might want to use that later. Is the idea, and you keep them to the side there. You want to reuse them. Boom, away you go. CorelDRAW also supports a ton of formats. It goes out to PDF, printers, scanners, JPEGs, TIFFs, bitmaps. It can bring them all in and take them all out. Bring them in as in the sense of importing those type of things. Like, for instance, if I had an artist page that I wanted to bring in, I would just literally go to here as an example, go to my comic, and I'll have a pages section. I can literally select the page. You can even select multiple pages and go import. And when I import, it'll let me, every time for how many images I have, I'll be able to click and bring those pages in to work with, right? So I can do my thing on it. Okay. All right, so back to our reframing fun. I'll work more with this bubble later. Let's get on to the next part of the reframe. So this, I just tried to do this overlap here, which is kind of cool. It'll look good with the drop shadow actually over this section. It'll make it pop on the corner. I will show us that in a minute. So I'm going to now create another rectangle, put it underneath here. You can see how it's snapping to the guidelines because I turned the snapping on. You can turn it off as well. And again, I'm going to take this page and drop it within that shape I just made and hit power clip. Now we have the full page inside of a shape. And I don't need the full page, so I'm going to use a crop tool. We're working on this top section here. So I'm going to just remove the rest of the page from, the reason to do this is to save memory size of your files, because the art you get from an artist can be up to 600 DPIs plus. It depends on the artist. You don't want to have super large files. If you have super large files, you're just killing yourself with the speed of your computer and other things that you don't need it. When you publish it out to PDF, you'll end up with really large files. There's just a lot because it'll consider them layers. It's like having the same page 10 times. So I'm just isolating it down to the frame, and you'll see here that I've done that. And it was underneath here, so I'm using a shortcut, shift page down, so to move the graphic on top. So I was talking about how the drop shadow will make it look. So watch what happens here on the corner, this white corner, when I now take a drop shadow. I'm picking the tool on the fly out, and I'm using my preset at the bottom, which I know very well. See that light little feathering there? I'm now going to pump it up a couple feather degrees here. So see how dark it is now? That's too much for me. I want to put this, I could type it in, but I'm going to play with this little slider. Okay. So your eye will now catch the depth of this being layered on top of that. It'll make it pop all the way around the edges of this item. Okay, so in this case, it's a little more tricky what we've got to do here to get the white border in this reframing exercise. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first turn it white so we can see it, put it to the 8 pixels that matches the other frames, and I'll go into another video to talk about how CorelDRAW can update every frame at once. which is a crazy feature. They're called styles. And what it would allow you to do is I could set all these 3 frames as a style. Well, I guess I might as well show you. So I'm right clicking. I'm now hitting, sure, let's do a color style from selected. And I haven't done this in a while, but we're going to take the object outline, see how it's white. We're going to say okay. And we're going to say okay. So we just created a color style of that outline. So if I go and create another shape, I can now go in and say object style, apply my color style I just made. If I did this right, new color style. Oh, I didn't do it right. My bad. You can tell I haven't done it for a while. You got to go right. So here's our outline. You right click on it. You hit object style and you get new style from outline. This is the outline of the object. And now we have to name it. So this is my comic, or I'll call it my Raquel. If I could type right, Raquel outline. So now what happens is I can apply that to other objects. So as you see this other object down here, you can't really see it right now. But if I go to color styles and object styles, apply styles. And there should be one called Raquel. Where's Raquel? We'll figure this out together here. Why is there no Raquel? That's confusing. Let me check this again. I'm not remembering something correct. Apply style. Huh. There it is there. So I can see it over here in the right Docker. It says Raquel right here. And this is where it keeps all your styles after you make it. So if I double click on it, see how that line now changed to the exact same color and thickness of this. So every object I can create now, if I click Raquel, I don't have to think about how thick that is. I know that's my border thickness I already chose, and I can keep reusing it. Now, the other cool thing about a style like this is you can edit it. So everything that has the color style, so you'll see here in a second, remember the color style is applied here and to these 3 objects here. So when I go into the color style over here inside of the Docker, I can control its properties. So right now it's set to 8. So if I wanted to make this really crazy and go, this just for emphasis to see what would happen, if I change it to 25, see how all of the objects outlines that have that style changed really thick. And if I put it back down to the 8, all of them turn back to the 8. This is a real, if you want to edit your comic at the end, you're at 32 pages into your comic and you're like, I hate the white outline. This is one-click ability when you set this up correctly and you remember to do this, to change all of it at once instead of you going into every single frame, clicking on it, right, and then doing it. It's just one of those things that saves a ton of times if you set up color styles, and I do them for my comics. Normally, I do them for my bubble outlines, the font size, and this type of framing here, because there's nothing worse than getting to the end and going, you know what, I now have to go through 32 pages and I reframed, let's say, over 100 frames and doing 100 clicks. Click, 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 click. Not if I don't have to. All right. So let's just get some of these out of the way here now that we've created a color style, or an object style in this case. So we have this problem where this frame is not rectangular or square. It's this different shape, right? What you can do with objects in Corel, so we created a rectangle or a square from the rectangle tool. You can right click on them and it's called convert to curves. When we convert it to a curve, we can now pick another tool. So I know this is a lot, but over time you learn how to do this stuff and it just becomes repetitive. And you can now change the shape of that object when you use the shape tool here. So this shape tool now allows me, and I can do a whole, like I can add a little node here and I can make this object like this. I can, there's a lot of different things you can do with the shape tool. But now I've made this frame look like the artist had provided it to me. And I can just click and work with it. So the overlap here that he did was very minimal. I'm actually going to increase it. So I'm going to make the worms bigger and see what happens here to see if I can then move this down a little bit to try and create some interesting space. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink it a little bit to make this corner on the right side of it stick out a little bit, just to add interest for the eyes for now. I don't know if I'll keep it at this point. I'm just playing to try and figure out what to do and what could look good. So I'm not really liking, I like it when the first frame of a page pops to you first, so your eye naturally goes to the top left. That's something that I usually like doing. So I don't like this frame being underneath, and this, or the other thing that's causing is that I've made this bigger. Almost like this, it's almost to me like this frame should be smaller, even though it's the, oh, yuck, there's stuff in here type thing. Like, what the heck is he doing? But anyways, by making it smaller, I'm now putting the emphasis back on Nick in the first frame of the page. And this is a graphic design thing. Some people might not agree with it. Some go, I liked it the way it was. And now I'm just going to move it down. Oh, I didn't lock that one. So I'm now moving all, you can nudge with arrows on your keyboard to be really specific. So I'm nudging these across the screen to get kind of a feel for it. And again, I can resize them to make them fit to that same width we want, so that they go back to those guidelines. Those guidelines I put on the page, these blue dotted dashed lines, are for exactly this purpose, is to resize things and make them snap so that I know what size to make everything, and to make sure that I don't go outside of these areas, because that's where you're going to, the printers don't want you to go outside those areas, because that's where they cut the paper off in some of these cases. And we're trying to create a consistent edge around the edge of our page, right? All right, so we've got a couple problems here. Oh, CorelDRAW's thinking again. I don't think my computer likes streaming and doing graphics work at the same time. I might be stressing out my video card here a little bit. All right, we'll give it a second to think. Whilst it does that, I'll show you a couple things. One of the do's I would recommend for anybody who's doing lettering is to look up, let me see if I can share it, to look up this book. I'm not going to remember its name. I've got to go find it. I've only got a digital copy of it, but it is phenomenal for lettering. All right, so let's share the screen. Let's go to the internet. This is my website, whitefirecomics.com, but we're going to look up, I don't know if it'll let me look something up. It'll probably stop the share. Okay, so Kindle books, because it's a digital thing I bought off Amazon. Yeah, I'm not sure to get to, how about my Kindle books? Sure, there's a way to get to this quicker. Huh. Okay, so maybe I'll share that another day when I plan to do it. Right now, it's I'm having trouble finding it now on Kindle. Let's see, lettering comics. Here we go. Okay, so let me try and share this now. Let's flip the share to. This book right here. Anybody who's doing lettering should have this guy's book. This is like the to me like the super book for lettering. He explains so much about comics and why the lettering is that way. Anybody, I have no idea who Tom is, but he did a great job. I'll see if I can pop it open and take a look inside it. Yeah. So, it's just so well done. It talks about the parts of the bubbles, how to use bubbles, the different types of ends of bubbles, when to use it, how to do special effects on text. This is just a great little book, and it's not that expensive to own digital. You get the Kindle version for $12. For $14, you can own it. I would probably buy it if I had the option. I'd like having texture things in my hand and to be able to flip through it and not have to mess around with screens like this. But this essential guide to comic book lettering, people, if you got to do lettering, you want this book. It's a great reference to flip through it. It explained to me, and I won't go through it right now because I won't remember it off the top of my head, what the double dashes mean. I had no clue about the pause that it means when you put a double dash in a bubble compared to using 3 ditto dots. It's two very different meanings, and there's other ways you can use those. So it actually talks to the grammar almost of, or how to read a comic book with bubbles. I had no idea. I was reading comic books wrong until I read this book. I had, that double dash changes the whole writing system of the way you should be lettering your comic books. All right, so let's go back to CorelDRAW here. Okay, so what I've done is I've shrunk down that frame a little bit. So I'm giving that more emphasis to the first frame, and I'm liking this a lot better already. The other problem that I did is, remember, I put that drop shadow on here, and it's not a problem. We tried it to see what it would look like, and it made it really pop. That'll help make this frame pop now, but now that it's smaller and it has that pop factor to it, it's balanced. It's way more balanced out now. But there's a couple tricks I want to do with this particular bug. I want to take the bugs in this frame and duplicate them, but we won't do that tonight. We'll save that for another day of teaching in photo paint. We're almost done the hour here, so hopefully next time we'll have some people stop in with some questions, or you can just sit and watch me do some layout and design if you like learning and seeing how you can use tools like CorelDRAW to do such. The one thing I want to do is end every episode with the same thing, and that is the don'ts. So let me pop this open. I put this little graphic together. Where is it? I'm going to find it now. Boom. The don't of the week. So this is a real important one for comic creators out there who are providing digital copies of their comic. I've seen this over and over again, being a backer on Kickstarter. I think I'm above 60 people I've backed now, so I've received 60 plus digital products from people. This is a huge mistake that people are making in creating overly large files and sharing them for them to read on their device. It just makes everything slow, and there's a bigger concern here I would have that everybody should be listening for. This don't is really important. So when you go to a printing press and you're done your comic book, you're going to provide them this huge file. It's going to be probably hundreds of megabytes big, and it's going to be this giant file. People who are reading on a PDF reader, on their tablets, on their phones, on their computers, do not need those large files. And what you do is put your art at risk when you distribute this PDF that would be used for printing as your digital copy. So within CorelDRAW, for instance, when you go to publish a PDF, there's a documentation option and a printing option. The documentation option is something more that you want to use, and you want to size this out to make sure. But what you want to make sure you're not doing is using the actual PDF that you sent for the printing. Because of its size, it'll be slow for your reader to read it. It'll be large for them to store, so they can't store as many comics as they want on the cloud, or you can't store as many comics as you want on your cloud. And this is the big gotcha. With AI out there these days, you're providing high res, printing level, people who have this PDF at this particular site can print your comic. They literally can take it, go to a publisher, and they can print your property. So this is why you do not want to provide full-size PDFs to a reader who's bought a digital version of your comic book. I've seen it. Probably 50% of the people so far that I've gotten comics from that are of digital nature off Kickstarter do this. And it's this huge file, and they're giving people the ability to take their art. You know, if someone takes that, publishes that PDF to the web, they now have high res, great image for AI to steal your artwork with. Don't do it. So really think about that. If you're a creator out there creating comics, you want to, most of mine, when they're the digital version, I believe are under 50 megabytes. And that's probably a fairly big size, 50 to 75 megabytes. If you're over that with your, I would assume with your digital PDF, you're in trouble. And it's the reverse. If you only have a 60 megabyte PDF and you're sending it to print, you're going to have a crappy print. So FYI, don't do this. And on that note, I am out of here. I just wanted to say it's been fun starting this off. I'm excited to build the audience and to give people a chance to come up and talk about things that they need help with that I might be able to help them with, or just to come in and chat. As of right now, Raquel 2 is launched on Kickstarter. We're looking for backers. We're having a reasonably slow start. We're up to 20 now, which is awesome. And thank you to all the backers. But go to Kickstarter, search for Raquel. Starting at $5, you can support the project. And it's going to be an amazing project. And it's got some super art. Like, it's worth the scroll through to see some of the characters and the planning. It's a great project. It's definitely worth your time to check it out. And on that note, I'm out of here. I'm just going to play the Raquel trailer on the way out. And peace and good luck to everybody. Later. Bye-bye. See you on the next one. Thursday at 8 next week. We're going live again. Later.